fine-tuned by Dr. Maria P. Srinivasan. Wish you all success. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your insightful address. And now we move on to the felicitation segment of the evening. We are grateful to have with us the esteemed board members of Intandem, whose constant support and guidance have been invaluable to the success of this symposium series. To begin with, I now invite Dr. Samuel Rufus, sir, patron of Intandem, an associate professor, Department of English, Madras Christian College, to offer his words of felicitation. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much. It's indeed my pleasure and privilege to be part of this wonderful grand finale of In Tandem, having seen In Tandem growing by leaps and bounds over the past 4 years. I've been so enthralled at the way the consistency has been maintained over a period of time. So I'm so happy that the themes that have been discussed in Tandem all these years, and many of our students have cleared their net. I would say with all assurance that four of our students who presented in tandem, those four have cleared their net. So these are all some benchmarks, milestones that in tandem is achieving quietly and consistently over a period of time. And so it's my great privilege to be part of In Tandem, the range of speakers that we have, and the range of thought provoking discussions that we have, followed by the talks. They are really stimulating, intellectually stimulating, and very rewarding, highly engaging discussions that we have. I should thank Queen Mary's College, the principal, especially for giving such a platform. Dr. Preeti, the vibrancy that she has, and the consistency. They say, ability can take you to the top, but only consistency and character can keep you there. And this consistency I see in the way In Tandem has been conducted over the years. And I wish In Tandem all success in all their future endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your gracious and encouraging words. Next, I invite Dr. R. Srilata ma'am, patron of Intandem and retired associate professor in Head Department of English, Chellamal College for Women, Chennai, to share her words of appreciation. The virtual floor is yours, ma'am. Ma'am, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible. I can't hear Srilata, ma'am.
Oh, no.
I think her mic is off, ma'am.
Now, can you hear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I think it was off. So, In Tandem Research Club's fortnightly symposium conducted without a break from the year 2021 to 22 is completing its fourth year. Congratulations. And that is with this valedictory session. The quality and range of papers presented here by scholars and keynote speakers have been so diverse as the universities, countries, and colleges or institutions they've represented. The students of Queen Mary's College have been truly blessed with a dedicated band of staff members who coordinate with the students and inspire them. Then Dr. English, whose brainchild this forum is ably guided and supported by the principal, Dr. Uma Maheshwari, and her colleagues. Each year, these programs are with the board of, and they have been choosing a broad field of study to deliberate and research on, research on, and meticulously they have been executing it. That's another thing. And I congratulate the entire team, especially the students of Queen Mary's who've been blooming into researchers, also learning to organize things. I should say that in keeping with the motto of the club, we're all growing together. I have benefited a lot from the quality papers presented by a range of I myself, so I can, and you can understand how much I have been exposed. I wish that the coming year will bring with it new research opportunities, when more resource persons will share their knowledge to enlighten the scholars on this revelatory and ongoing revelatory and intellectual journey. Wishing the team all success. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your message. Now, I warmly invite Mr. Joshua Nyanaselvan, sir, board member of Intandem and English language
Of 2024-25. Uh, I have been associated with In Tandem for the last 2.5 years, and it's been a remarkable journey thus far. And I've learned immensely from my peers, the In Tandem members, and at the same time, there were sessions that I missed. There were sessions that I was part of, and I could see that there were plethora of talks from various domains, shared their experiences, institutions across the country are continuing to do this in this particular fashion. And I think Queen Mary's College Department of English should be proud of itself for having sustained this fortnightly forum for almost 4 years. This is only beginning, I'm sure themselves, and I'm sure, like Dr. Rufus said, I second him because students stand to benefit from such initiatives, and it's really remarkable to know that 4 students have cleared net, and I'm sure this research engagement was also crucial. I'm sure there have been a lot of takeaways. So I wish In Tandem all success, and I hope there will be many more years to come forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your thoughtful and motivating words. And without further ado, we'll move on to the keynote speakers interaction. We are truly honored to host distinguished personalities as our keynote speakers this evening. International consultant at UNESCO. Dr. Venkatraman sir is an international consultant in education sector development, currently associated with the UNESCO Office for the Gulf States and the Asian Development Bank. A former UNESCO official for over 13 years, he has worked across Canada, Kenya, Thailand, and beyond. He holds MPhils from the University of Madras and Cambridge and a PhD from the London School of Economics. He's also a prolific writer and advisor to several NGOs, UN agencies, and international policy platforms. He will be sharing his insights on humanitarian interventions in conflict and post conflict zones, challenges, and best practices in UNESCO's work in Arab and African regions. Sir, we are eagerly looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you very much. So, first of all, let me thank the tandem of Queen Mary College for actually inviting me to address this gathering. So I first thank the principal of Queen Mary's College, Dr. Uma Maheshwari, and also Dr. Maria Preeti, whom I met recently in a workshop organized by UNHCR and Laila College. So it was nice sort of seeing her again. And thanks for inviting me for this. And also, I really thank all the board members of the Tandem, and also the support team for actually, conducting this wonderful initiative over the last few years. So my purpose today is basically to briefly give a glimpse of what I have my association with UNESCO in the Arab and the African regions with regard to the humanitarian work with reference to education and culture. So I have a little presentation, so which I will sort of share my screen, and I will walk you through this this particular presentation. Let me share the screen. Is my screen visible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, it's a privilege to be speaking to you today on this subject, which I think it's both urgent and deeply human. So it's about how we respond to conflict through education and culture. Uh, Around the world, violent conflicts have left behind not only physical ruins but broken institutions, displaced communities, and fractured identities. So, amidst this, UN organizations like UNESCO, UNHCR, my colleague Dr. Valan is here. So, and many other UN agencies like UNICEF and others, as well as some other international agencies and donor agencies, all been trying to continue to work to preserve what matters most. As far as UNESCO is concerned, uh, because its core areas are education, culture, so it's about trying to address the issues related to learning of children, the dignity of displaced people, and the soul of communities expressed through their culture. Today, what I want to do is to take you through a journey into the Arab and African regions, and particularly some of the countries where I've been working the last few years, such as Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, Uganda, Somalia, and Iraq, to explore how UNESCO navigates the difficult terrain of humanitarian work, especially in education in emergencies. We also use the acronym EIE and the cultural heritage protection. Since a lot of students are here, I just want to tell you that, as you know, UNESCO is one of the first UN organizations that was formed, and its core areas have been education, culture, communication, and science and technology. And UNESCO is mandated as the key agency for education and culture, specifically when it comes to the Sustainable Development Goals, SDG 4, which is on provision of quality education. UNESCO is the lead agency. So this is just a background, and also many of you know that UNESCO is also the basically hosts the World Heritage Center, which awards the World Heritage sites globally, which I mean many of you are familiar. So this just give you a background about UNESCO. So let us move on to the main part. So to set the context, conflicts basically don't just destroy buildings, they basically displace millions. Conflicts shut down schools, traumatize children, and erase centuries of cultural identity. I've been working in the last few years in countries like Syria, Yemen, and we have been witnessing some of these things happening and how it's been displacing millions of students and youth, and also has been destroying many cultural uh, sort of structures in these countries. So, according to one estimation given by an international NGO called Education Cannot Wait, which is actually a global fund for education in emergencies and protracted crises, according to them, 222 million children and youth affected by crisis are in urgent need of educational support. And among them, 78 million are out of school entirely. That is, we're not talking temporarily, but indefinitely. In many of these regions, we are looking at entire generations growing up without access to learning, without the structure, protection, or hope that schools offer. And in parallel, when it comes to cultural heritage, books, manuscripts, places of worship, music, and oral traditions are under direct attack. For example, in Iraq, for example, 70% of Mosul's old city, Mosul is one of the important cities in Iraq, was destroyed during the ISIS occupation in 2017, wiping out libraries, religious sites, and schools. So the challenge then is enormous. How do we ensure that education continues during conflict? And how do we preserve the cultural foundations that hold communities together, even in the darkest moments? So, UNESCO, this is where the UNESCO's humanitarian interventions come in. UNESCO isn't the first responder organization such as UNHCR and the World Food Programme. I think Dr. Valan will be talking more about all the UNHCR's, because UNHCR is at the forefront whenever the crisis takes place. A lot of people are displaced, so they basically kind of address the kind of people who are coming into another host country as refugees. So we call them as the first responder organizations. So UNESCO is not the first responder organization, but its strength lies in the long-term recovery and resilience, in helping societies not just survive, but rebuild. It focuses on two pillars: education in emergencies and cultural heritage protection. So I want to also acknowledge here the UNESCO's broader strategy. Beyond the ground level interventions, UNESCO leads the way globally in shaping how the world thinks about education in emergencies. When we talk about education in emergencies, it's important to understand that UNESCO doesn't operate alone, and its role is both norm setting and operational. UNESCO serves as a global convener, policy advisor, and capacity developer in EIE. It helps governments and partners ensure that learning never stops, even in the most adverse conditions. Some of the key pillars of UNESCO's EIE work are: one, protecting education from attack, that is, advocating for legal and political frameworks to safeguard schools and learners. Second, strengthening education systems resilience, helping ministries of education integrate crisis preparedness and response into policy. This is the kind of work I'm currently involved, especially in the Gulf region, with regard to Syria, Yemen, etc. We are really helping ministries of education to basically strengthen their education system by providing capacity building and also technical advice. Another area is teacher support. training teachers not just to deliver curriculum, but to offer psychosocial support and trauma-sensitive teaching. Then the fourth important pillar is data and planning. Basically supporting ministries in building education management information system, or EMIS, that tracks learners, especially displaced children. For those who are not familiar with EMIS, this is something. This is not only concerning with countries in conflict or post-conflict countries. This is a global format that all ministries of education use to track learners and teachers and try to address issues of learning outcomes. So this is basically a database that collects data from school level, and also it looks into the various aspects of the teaching learning processes, such as infrastructure, availability of learning materials, student progression, student performance, student enrollments, attrition, dropouts, teacher development, teacher training, etc. So this is a very critical monitoring and evaluation tool. The
Excuse me, sir. The slide is not visible, sir.
It's not visible.
Yeah, it's just a blank pair.
Oh, because I'm able to see the. Are you able to see the slides now?
No, sir.
Oh, I was under the, because I was sharing the screen. I don't know what's going on. Let me see if I need to do something else, because I was hoping I was sharing the screen. Uh, Maybe I'll just stop and sorry about this. Maybe I'll try sharing the window. If tell me if the screen is visible now.
Not yet, sir. Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay.
I don't know what's, because I only have these two options here. It says I can share either my screen or my window. Obviously, maybe there's some security issues. I don't know. Is it visible now?
No, sir.
No.
No.
So I'm not sure how do I
If you don't
solve
mind
this.
sending it to us, we can screen it.
Yeah. Okay. Just give me a second. I'll send it. I'll send by email.
You can send it to me by WhatsApp. We can screen.
WhatsApp, is it?
WhatsApp or an email?
I think I have the email here. I got
Yes, you
this
can
email
send it to the email. You
from
can
the
send it.
Tandem. The
Yes,
Tandem.
sir.
Okay. Just give me a second.
Nivedita, can you screen it?
Yes, ma'am. I'll do.
Yeah, I've just sent. It should come within the next minute or so.
You can continue, sir, and we can see the slides also later.
Okay. Yeah, because there are some pictures also which I wanted to show as well, because that's the reason I actually prepared this presentation. Okay, so let me continue. Once it's ready, then you can put up the screen. Okay, so let me continue with the EAE work of UNESCO. So apart from the global standard setting and capacity building work and the work of UNESCO, and also I mentioned about the key strategic pillars of UNESCO's EAE work. Just to give you some examples, some notable country level interventions. In Libya, UNESCO worked with local authorities to develop an emergency curricula that could be taught even in areas under siege or with damaged infrastructure. This kind of initiatives UNESCO has we have done. I was involved in Syria as well, where we prepared this emergency curriculum in some of the sort of conflict areas during the height of the war. As well as in Palestine, UNESCO has supported blended learning platforms, ensuring that children in Gaza continue learning through power outages and blockades. So now things have gone back to worse, as many of you know, but there's a lot of work was done in blended learning platforms, blended learning especially during the COVID and post-COVID years. In South Sudan, UNESCO has provided community-based teacher training for volunteers stepping in as educators in refugee hosting areas. Is the thing is, I mean, the PowerPoint has come?
Yes, sir.
Okay, maybe you can sort of show the PowerPoint, and I can
Yes,
also. Okay. Okay, just go through just the brief slides for others, because I've already gone through this, just for others to see. So this is the UNESCO, uh, the basic background I just told you. The next slide. These are the various figures I gave, and also some of the issues related to key aspect. I mean, the questions that we asked related to education and culture. Next slide. And these are the two dual mandate of UNESCO. Next slide. And these are the four strategic pillars that I mentioned of education under attack, and strengthening education systems, teacher support, and data systems. Next slide. So this is some of the notable country level interventions that I just mentioned. Next slide, where I'll just continue. So this is also in the digital learning and innovation area. Also, UNESCO has been working with regard to EIE, such as mobile apps for accelerated learning, which we have been doing in Iraq and Jordan, solar-powered learning kits for off-grid regions, such as Somalia and Central African Republic, as well as in the field of providing radio and television education during the COVID and the sort of conflict times. Next. Okay. Just to go a little bit more on some of the other examples as well. See, when it comes to education, it is also a life-saving aspect. Basically, it provides psychosocial stability. It also gives children some routine, and also reduces their vulnerability to exploitation. There's been a lot of research, and a lot of things have been done with regard to how education can free the children from these problems, and also it may discourage students joining the armed conflict, and also that becomes also education becomes the only hope for students, I mean children and youth, out of their own problems. So it becomes a very important tool. So some of the examples of the EAE work that has been done, especially in the Arab region. For example, in Lebanon, which hosts over 1.5 million Syrian refugees, UNESCO has worked alongside the Ministry of Education to create pathways for refugee children to join Lebanese public schools. See, in some countries, host country doesn't allow refugee students to integrate into the national education system, but some countries like Uganda and Lebanon do allow this. So through the program called Back to Learning program, thousands of children have been enrolled in formal and non-formal education, as well as the accelerated learning programs have helped children to catch up after years of disrupted schooling. In Syria, where active conflict continues, UNESCO launched Curriculum B, that is basically a compressed version of national syllabus that enables out-of-school children to re-enter formal education. In Yemen, over 2,500 schools were damaged or destroyed. So UNESCO has been introducing this radio-based learning, which reaching children who had no classrooms or teachers. Combined with teacher training and psychosocial support, This intervention addressed both educational and emotional trauma. Similarly, in Uganda, which hosts over 1.5 million refugees, mainly from South Sudan and DRC Congo, UNESCO has supported the integration of refugee learners into national systems. Uganda is being seen as one of the countries globally as an example of how a host country has been very receptive to refugee situation in terms of integrating them into mainstream society, whereas by and large in many countries they remain sort of not well integrated, so they remain in refugee camps. uh, Dr. Valan will probably talk about those things in terms of what are the challenges of refugees who are based in refugee camps, and also there are camps in globally which has been there for decades. For example, in Kenya, on some of the world's largest camps such as Dadaab and Kakuma, which host many Somalian refugees, they've been there for decades. Children were born, they grew there, married, and also they have grown into their adulthood, etc. So this is the situation with regards to many of the refugees. Next, please. Now that, just to give you some examples, and just showing some pictures of the refugee camp in Lebanon. As you can see, most of the campsites are very basic makeshift conditions in which they live. They don't have access to water and sanitation. Next, please. Many of the humanitarian agencies like UNHCR, UNICEF, UNESCO, and others have been providing, like you can see, a situation where students are going to school in the morning, which is a makeshift situation. And whenever Lebanon being very extreme weathers like Delhi, can get very cold or can get very warm, and also during rainy seasons they have to cope up with extreme weathers also. Next slide. This is some pictures of Syria, again to show you that how much conflict has ravaged the country. On the left you see, this is one of the important cities in Syria called Aleppo, and left you see how Aleppo was 20 years back, and if you go to the next slide, please, you can see how it is now. And some of the schools and basic structures have been destroyed. So this is what conflicts do to the countries, basically, as well as displacing millions of Syrians across the border to Lebanon, Turkey, Jordan, etc. Next slide, please. So now let's turn to the cultural side. Culture isn't about heritage, it's about identity and belonging. In post conflict zones, protecting culture can be a tool for healing and reconciliation. So, in Syria, UNESCO collaborated with local experts to digitally archive endangered manuscripts from Aleppo and Palmyra. In Yemen, the old city of Sana'a and Shibam, both World Heritage sites, have been protected under emergency, etc. I'll just show you some pictures of that. Next slide, please. So this is the Yemen old city of Sana'a. What is interesting about this, and also the next slide, please. Rebuilt or re-equipped, and over 20 World Heritage sites have been protected or stabilized since the 2018 in conflict zones. But the need need still overweighs the resources. Only 30% of global education funding in humanitarian crisis is actually allocated to emergencies, I mean education in emergencies, and this gap needs urgent attention. Next slide, please. So, looking forward, humanitarian education and cultural work faces evolving challenges. One is climate induced displacement is increasing, bringing new layers of crisis. Digital divide in remote or conflict affected regions still limits access to learning. The mental health toll on teachers and students alike is also growing. Attacks on education and cultural institutions are becoming more strategic and more frequent. Next, please. So, UNESCO and other broader international community, they are trying to invest more in flexible and local educational models. They are expanding digital and hybrid learning platforms in conflict zones. They are promoting cross-cultural education that builds empathy and tolerance, securing long-term predictable funding for education and culture in emergencies. Above all, center community voices where it is whether it is a displaced child in a war-torn area or a teacher in a affected conflict area. It's very important all these actors are included in the rebuilding process. Finally, next slide. In conclusion, UNESCO's intervention reminds us of something vital, that education and culture are not optional in times of crisis, they are essential. They are the anchors that hold communities together, the pathways to peace, and the voices of hope arising from the rubble. So, thank you very much. So, although the time is very limited, I could have explored more deeper into all these areas. But this was my purpose was to just to give a quick snapshot of what's happening with regard to humanitarian work of one particular UN agency with regard to education and culture. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for enlightening us with your valuable insights. And our next speaker is Mr. Satchithananda Valan Michael, sir, Head of Field Office, UNHCR, Chennai. Mr. Valan Michael, sir, serves as the head of the UNHCR Field Office in Chennai, managing refugee operations across South India since 2014. With over 18 years in humanitarian work, he has held leadership roles in international NGOs and consulted for the Government of India, Tamil Nadu, and various international bodies. He holds a postgraduate degree in social work from Loyola College, Chennai, and has participated in the Oxford University Summer School on Forced Migration as well as the US State Department's Leadership Exchange Program. He will speak on the compelling theme of responding and resolving forced migration for a peaceful world. The forum is yours, sir.
Thank you. And I'm pretty much privileged to be part of this particular forum. And also, it's the second time. So I feel like I'm also part of this forum with the insights shared already. So thanks to the organizers, especially the principal, Professor Dr. Maria Srinivasan, and also the other faculty members for providing such opportunity. I hope I have my screen is visible.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. Okay, so thanks to Dr. Venkat for this prelude, and also you have set the tone very clearly and also referred about the refugees and the work that UNESCO has been taking up across the world in supporting, in addressing the primary challenges of education. So uh, as I wanted to also share and start with the small readings or the suggested readings to understand the refugee concepts and to toe a line of discussion through that. So I just wanted to first invite you to pay a little bit attention on this particular the book called Refuge. I'm sure you have, some of you might have read this book, and it is a book that provides an overview of three specific refugees. One from a Jewish boy from the Nazi Germany, and the story of that particular boy named Joseph, that is from the 1938. And another person is from Cuba, a girl named Isabel, in who, the story around 1994. And similarly, Mohammed, a Syrian boy who had sought refugee from the civil war in the year 2015. So this novel particularly highlights their struggles, their resilience, and the universal quest for safety and freedom. So, why I wanted to talk about this book as a prelude to my presentation is primarily because the refugee issue is not something that we have seen only recently. It has been there for quite a very long time in the human history. And second book where I would like to invite your attention is also a book uh, written by Khalid Husseini, who has been in the US, but he's an Afghan person, Afghan refugee, and he has written in the Kite Runner a very great, a detailed portrayal of various situations that one goes through when they are affected by conflict and by affected and as being a refuge in some other country. And there is one thing which I really like, and I would like to quote from the book is there is only one sin, and that is theft. And when you tell a lie, you steal someone's right to the truth. Why I want to talk about, or why I'm really inclined to talk or mention about this quote is the most of the situations, the conflict is because somebody tells a lie or somebody kind of a, if not telling a lie, is not telling the truth. So that is what we have seen it in the history. And if I want to quote another thing, that is like the Rohingya crisis, which is from Myanmar in 2007. That Rohingya crisis, when it got into attention of the world, and also were further going down in 2000, very recently in 2012, the whole thing started from a very particularly the now the digital age and the very prominently used terminology, that is algorithms used by social media. And why I talk about the social media is because these are all the social media when sometimes that portrays or probably presents a narrative to the people that very much impact the life of many normal human beings who look forward to have peace in their life. But unfortunately, they are the ones subjected to and become a victim of such context and also the politics behind it. And that is how they become a refuge, and their ordeal continues to be there until they find solutions. So when we are combining or comparing both of these books that I had just mentioned, the Kite Runner as well as the Refuge, it portrays overall displacement and loss, struggle for survival, search for identity, and the impact of war and conflict, and the hope and redemption. So these are all the five major concepts that we need to take it into consideration when we really want to understand and resolve the conflict induced forced migration and the solutions towards it. So when I'm talking about the refugee and their or the forced migration and the solution, we need to also understand few of the concepts through which we need to understand and also to approach the solutions towards it. That is what UNHCR continues to do globally. And one such concept is an asylum seeker, because we cannot just say everybody is a refugee, because the refugee means, like, the definition is drawn from very much a legal definition, so from the international laws. So the international law really clearly mentions about the who is an asylum seeker. So we need to understand such concepts. So basically, a person who flees their own country and seek refuge in another country, the first step, if a person is on the first step, that person is called asylum seeker. So the person asylum claim needs to be assessed by a party, which is UNHCR does it globally generally, or the government, the sovereign government, where they have sought refuge or asylum. So that is what we call as asylum seeker. And the next concept that we need to be very clear about is who is a refugee. So there is a very clearly, because there is always a kind of a confusion. A person who is seeking an economic opportunity can be considered as a refugee? No. A person who is having a malified intention to create a law and order issue into another country and going as an asylum seeker, can that person be portrayed or defined as a refugee? No. So the refugee definition is very clearly mentions that a person owing to a well-founded fear of persecution due to the reasons of race, religion, nationality, membership to a particular social group or a political opinion, seeking a safety outside the country of their origin, or a person who is unable to return to their country due to the such fear is the person who is to be called as a refugee. And when we are talking about asylum seeker, refugee as a concept, we need to also understand few other concepts. That is, who is an internally displaced person. So, for an example, a person who had been impacted by this conflict and has have a very profound fear of persecution, and that is a threat to their physical safety and also the various other issues. That person is unable to go to across the international boundary, go to another country seeking safety, but is able to go to another area within the country of their own origin and is able to kind of find some sort of a safety. That person is called internally displaced persons. So basically the IDPs are two-pronged, like we define it as a two-way. One is the conflict-induced internally displaced person, and another one is a development-induced internally displaced person. So I will not dwell deep into the development-induced, because see, for an example, in urbanization, we kind of see quite a lot of people across the world have to be displaced to provide space for the development that urban areas or the country that really require to have. So how do we deal with that is a separate story. It's a development paradigm. But whereas in the forced migration paradigm, we always talk about the conflict-induced internally displaced person. And another concept that we also need to know is about stateless. Because many a times we say stateless people are the refugees because they have left their country. No. The statelessness is basically a country that disowns their own citizen by saying that they are not anymore the citizen of their own country. So that means they are unable to claim the protection right that the country owes to them. And that person is rendered stateless. That is like no country they don't belong to any countries. So that person is a stateless. So basically not all the refugees are stateless, but the stateless people can be refugees. So there are various other international law that clearly describe how and define who is a stateless person. And also generally we always say migration and migrant. So there are two different migrants that we see, like one is an internal migrant and an out migrant. So internal migrant is basically a person who's migrant within the country and is primarily for economic reasons. So a person who leaves the country and go to another country seeking a better economic opportunities is a person who's an economic migrant, out migrant. So when we talk about the refugees, we need to also distinguish that this particular person who is called as a refugee is definitely not an economic migrant. So the confusion that prevails across different walks of different segments of the community, that we need to be very clear that when we are talking about refugees or asylum seeker or a stateless person, we are not talking about a person who is a migrant. So basically they are all they are all a person who have been forced to migrate to another country seeking safety. So this is the conceptual clarity that we need to really have as we approach the issue of refugees. So when I am talking about the refugees, I need to also mention about the various narratives that are present, that we come across on day-to-day life through various media propaganda or a political propaganda, or probably for people who are not very much sensitized about it. So I feel this is is something that we need to be really acknowledge, that we have negative narratives about refugees. At the same time, we need to also look at positive narratives. So when we talk about positive narratives, we need to talk about resilience and strength. Rather than focusing on some of the negative narratives, I feel that it is essential that nowadays we need to talk about the positive narratives that we need to promote. So one is like when we talk about Einstein. Einstein is a person that we know he doesn't require any introduction globally, and he was a refugee. And also Malala is a refugee. So we know what they have been doing. And also another aspects that we need to understand is people who contribute to the society are also becoming refugees. So like what is the contribution of Malala, what is the contribution of Einstein, and also Sergey Brin, so who is one of the co-founder of Google, and I'm sure like now we are having it in the Google platform, this particular. So he has been one of the reason that we are able to connect remotely, and that is a contribution of a refugee. So we need to also see how heroism and courage is also being spoken, and it is one of the positive narrative that we need to promote. See, for an example, Mia is a Sri Lankan refugee, but she has been talking about Palestine and the issues of Palestine and the people's issues of Palestine very openly for a very long years. So we need to talk about that courage and the heroism that some of the refugees are also displaying, demonstrating in the world. And when we talk about some of the negative narratives that we need to counter very actively, is they are considered as, or probably they're being said to be a threat to national security across the world. But is it really? Because they are just fleeing a security threat and seeking safety. So how can they be treated to be a threat to a national security? So that means, that implies that we need to have a set of standards and the practices and the procedures to be in place where such threats are eliminated, and the persons who are genuinely seeking refugees, and we have to support them in whatever the way for them to find solutions. And we also talk about economic burden. So nowadays, I think with the different countries taking different standards or stands, positions towards how they're continuing to claim that they are a drain to the economy of that particular country when they are coming. Unfortunately, that is a very wrong portrayal, and that has to be defeated with a lot of facts and figures, which we have already from a lot of researchers. For an example, a refugee come to another country seeking refugee, they always want to support their family, and they want to kind of work. And what kind of work that they do is, they always find some of the DDD jobs, that is dangerous and demeaning, such like a very much below their dignity, and whatever is that is available, and which the locals of that country do not want to take it. So that is something that we need to be mindful, and they contribute actively to the economy of that country by participating in the market, the labor market in that country. And there is another negative narrative that continue to be promoted, is they are a cultural threat. So unfortunately, they are unable to, because if you really understand that one of the reasons that they are being forced to be a refugee or an asylum seeker is due to the fact that they belong to one particular religion or one particular race or one particular social group which has a culture. So they are unable to practice their culture. But when they find a solution, they always find an opportunity to practice their culture. So if that is the case, then we should have a provision for them to have that cultural right to be exercised in the country. And then in that case, they cannot be considered as a cultural threat. And another thing which often we continue to observe is that hate speech and xenophobia, which is like completely anti-refugee narrative that is being propagated by many constituencies of a country, including sometimes like organizations, sometimes political parties, sometimes media groups. So we need to find out, is it something that is really required? Because if there is a person who can go back to their country and who can live in peace and serenity and support their family, they will always go back. So the idea of promoting a hate speech needs to be nullified, because with a very clear fact that they are the victims or the survivors of this particular xenophobia or a hate speech that are very much programmatically promoted for particular reasons, maybe a political reasons. So that is something that we need to be understanding. So with this particular introduction of how the negativity and the conflicts and the wars, which are primarily a reason for somebody to go, and that particular reasons are also continue to operate against their own well-being, and also the locals and also the others. And in that way, what we need to really do is to promote solutions for them. So the understanding of solutions should be from the perspective of what UNHCR globally promotes. And as I'm talking about UNHCR, UNHCR has a mandated organizations by the United Nations General Assembly, and which continues to have an operation and continues to deal with more than 112 millions of people who are forcefully migrated to another country. So what we see is like almost we have a presence in 136 countries, and we talk about refugees like 43 millions of them, 68 millions of IDPs, which is also one of the area where UNHCR continues to work and support, and also about 6.9 million asylum seekers across the world. And the another factor that we also understand is like 75% of this particular population of refugees or asylum seekers or IDPs are hosted in low and middle income countries. So this is also an indication why we need to resolve the solutions from the angle of like promoting stability of the countries that are hosting them as well. So today, when I'm talking about the refugees, the highest refugees are hosted across different regions. But again, one of the countries that host them is Pakistan, and one of the countries that host them is Turkey, and also different other countries that continue to host them, like Kenya, which Dr. Venkat also mentioned as it has one of the largest refugee camps of the world. So when I'm talking about the refugee situations and the solutions, there are three solutions that are available for them. And one is the voluntary repatriation, that is their ability to go back to their country on the condition of safety and dignity, and voluntarily they are able to go back. And another solution that we say is wherever they are finding a safety in a third country, they are able to locally integrate and continue to lead a life and contribute to their economic development. And the third option is about the resettlement. That is, the person who has found an asylum in some other country is unable to continue to live in that country, but is being resettled to another third country. But it is exercised based on the willingness of the third country that they are able to be accepted on a resettlement, and they continue to have a fully like they continue to exercise their rights and to kind of live in conditions of dignity. So these are all the three major solutions that we see it. So how do we achieve such solutions, and how do we really move forward towards that? Is primarily one thing that we always depend on is the sustainable development goals. The sustainable development goals, especially this goal number 16, that promotes the peace, justice, and strong institutions of the world. So this is something that we need to be really promoting, and as a part of the civil society, as part of the world, I think we need to be mindful that we need to contribute to this SDG. So how do we contribute to this SDG, and how do we really promote such solutions? I'm trying to take you through a kind of the situations in India, and also particularly in Tamil Nadu with regard to the Sri Lankan Tamils, so that we are able to understand this a little bit more better with the very local context specific situations. So in India, when we talk about India, there is the negative narratives also continue to be promoted in India. But at the same time, when we are looking at the numbers, it is basically people with few billions of people here, where we are able to kind of see there are only about 211,000 people are only there. So from Myanmar, from Afghanistan, from people from African countries, from Middle East, And but at the same time, there are also people from the neighboring countries such as the Tibet and also the Sri Lanka. So in Sri Lanka, when I'm talking about the Sri Lanka, where I would like to specifically talk about like the Sri Lankan refugees who have been accommodated in the refugee camps and that are being managed by the government of India and Tamil Nadu, has been in existence for since 1983. And when we are talking about the numbers, we are having about close to 90,000 people who are currently living in Tamil Nadu. And there's many of them are living in the camps. There are about 104 camps which exist, which are run by the government. And also there are about 33,000 of them who live outside the camp, like as you and me living in a city or in a village, and they live with the police registration. So when we are talking about this particular population since 1983, they are currently in the 43rd year or 42nd year of being in a conditions of refugee. So being as a refugee for 40 years means like a 3 generations. So what are the solutions for such protracted conditions or protracted refugees is something that we need to really think. And when we are thinking, I think I also invite you to think, since the refugees from Sri Lanka left their internal due to the internal conflict which ended in 2009, and when we are talking in 2025, why this community or this Sri Lankan refugees are unable to go back to their country? And because the situation doesn't really encourage them, and moreover, they have been living in India for more than 3 decades or 4 decades, and they are finding India to be the home for them. So is it something that something can be done to promote local integration for them? Because what we see is the voluntary return as one of the solutions, which I said a few minutes ago, is not anymore possible for them. Not for many of them, at least some of them are able to go back still. So what we need to really see is from the angle of law, the legality. So when we talk about legality, we can always generalize that if a person or a child is born in a country, the child will automatically become a Indian or probably the national of that particular country, which is not the case even in India. A person or child who is born in India is not automatically an Indian. The child is born to a Indian parent becomes an Indian. A child born to one of the Indian parent before 2004 to another foreigner also becomes an Indian. But if the foreigner gives birth to along with or probably married to another Indian, and that particular foreigner is considered to be a refugee, the child does not become an Indian automatically. So what needs to be taken is we need to look at what are the laws, the constitutional provisions, the judicial pronouncements say. So basically what I really want to just make it a point here is there are provisions and there are judicial safeguards within India, and that is something that we need to really rely on and that we need to promote in order to promote the solutions, which is the local integration for the Sri Lankan refugees. So one such angle is like we need to have the local solutions through the legal provisions, but at the same time, what is the other options that are available? Because it is not only providing them with the legal solutions, but also we need to promote the self-reliance for them. Because they have been, as a refugee, they are mostly dependent on aid. They are mostly dependent on assistance being extended to them, either by UNHCR, either by the government, or by other social organizations like NGOs and others. So, but when we are looking at the solutions part of it, what we need to really look at is how the solutions become sustainable and how the solutions can become accessible only when the people can become self-reliant. So the refugees need to be self-reliant when they want to be, when they have to exercise such solutions. So one such concept is like that we continue to promote across the world, especially in protracted situations for refugees, is to promote self-reliance of refugees. So in promoting self-reliance of refugees, the concept of humanitarian, development and peace nexus. So the HDP nexus, as we call it, is something that gives us a guidance and that gives us a framework for us to move forward. So in that particular humanitarian peace nexus, development and peace nexus, it is basically to promote the positive narrative and to promote the contribution of the refugees, and also to appreciate the circumstances in which they have gone through, which can be used for the overall development of that particular locality and also for the refugees. So it is not anymore considered to be appropriate for us to look at only the self-reliance of refugees and the development of refugees, but also the development and the self-reliance of the local communities which host them becomes very, very, very pertinent and significant in this progress. So one thing which we need to be really considering is that we cannot be promoting such solutions all alone. So the challenges are too many. So due to the paucity of time, I'm unable to go to all the challenges because it requires a lot of time to explain what are the challenges the refugees face. So the basic challenges, if I can just mention, is basically they cannot find opportunity to work. They cannot find opportunity to enroll in higher education. So only less than 2% of the refugees are able to access higher education. Even in a country and even in the state which has a very good ranking under the the HDI indexes and various other indexes, I think it becomes very difficult for them to navigate and to find a way to reach the higher education. And again, another challenge is again the uncertainty that prevail around them. So in terms of dealing with all these challenges, and it is a multiple challenges, what we need to do is we need the support of various actors and the investments and the ideas, so that we are able to move forward and implement this particular idea of humanitarian development and peace nexus towards achieving the self-reliance, which is the core principle behind, or a core approach behind the solutions that we need to have for the refugees. So what we need to do is we need to look forward to have socio-economic and local integration and the peaceful inclusion for them. And also we need to empower them and include them in the economy by using the SDG goals and the ESG goals that we have, and also the CSR goals that are now being set for the private sector. So the private sector engagement is something that we cannot just ignore, but what we need to do is we need to promote the private sector for us. So how do we do it, and what are the agencies that we continue to work in promoting such self-reliance by promoting this kind of a solutions is obviously the government agencies, and primarily the academic institutions and other UN agencies. I'm sure from the presentation made by Dr. Venkat, we understand how much of a complementarity and essential services being provided to the refugees by UNESCO. And similarly, WHO, UNICEF, and so many organizations, they continue to provide. And development banks. So we have the World Bank, Asian Development Bank, so many banks, they have specific approaches that continue to contribute for the refugee protection and the solutions for them. And the private sector and the non-governmental organizations, and also the specialized agencies that work on different areas, because one areas that we often forget is about the mental health. The trauma a person have to undergo and that continue to live with them is a very big issue, because the incidents that they witness during the time of conflict and during the time of their displacement and after the displacement also, that continue to affect them very much. And we need to be mindful about the climate, and the climate technology is also something that we continue to promote, that we need to include the refugees into the climate interventions. And now we cannot afford to leave the refugees behind. One of the cornerstone principles of the SDG is leaving no one behind. And similarly, in the digital world, the increasingly becoming, we are digitally prominently using various digital technologies. So we cannot create a situation where refugees are left alone. So we need to have digital technology also to be promoted through specialized agencies. So what I would like to kind of conclude is that refugees is and their solutions is always represents hope. So do we really find solutions for every refugee? Or if we find solution for one refugee, that is sufficient? I think we should start from the one, and we need to approach and to provide and like kind of extend that particular hope and the solutions to as many as possible. And that really requires, and I would like to call on for individual actions for it more than an organizational. So in that, the public advocacy, where I think clubs like Tandem can support and also to to help us expand it to a greater extent. So I would like to say that the representing hope is something that we need to have across across the thinking process that we have about refugees and their solution. And one thing which I always want to kind of mention is something the former President of India, Abdul Kalam, has made as a speech at the European Parliament, which really connects the conflict, the peace, and the solutions for them. And that is something that we need to always promote. That is, where there is righteousness in the heart, there is beauty in the character. And when there is a beauty in the character, there is harmony in the home. When there is harmony in the home, there is an order in the nation. When there is an order in the nation, there is peace in the world. So I think it starts from the individual action. So let us try to do that. And one thing which I would like to also kind of request and also appeal to the academicians who are here, that we have made a comprehensive curriculum on refugee statelessness and mixed migration, which was referred by Dr. Venkat also. And this is something which is available. So if there are any colleges or any departments wants to use it, we are ready to provide advices and suggestions and support how this can be implemented as part of the curriculum. Because nowadays we cannot afford to ignore refugee issues, because refugee issue is directly proportionate to the situation of the world, where we really need a lot of peace. So with this, I again thank you for this wonderful opportunity, and I will be happy to take up if there are any few questions also. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for those powerful reflections and the global perspectives you have shared with us. And now I would like to introduce our last keynote speaker for today. Dr. Anuradha ma'am is an esteemed associate professor in the Department of Tamil at Queen Madras College, Chennai. With over 30 years of teaching experience, a distinguished scholar and a guide, she has published and presented more than 110 papers at national and international forums. Her academic journey is marked by a PhD on didactical thoughts in Tamil Sangam literature, and her guidance has shaped numerous PhD, MPhil, and postgraduate dissertations. A recipient of multiple awards, including Best Teacher, Sendamil Sudar Virudu, and Bharati Tamil Virudu, and she will shed light on the topic, the International Red Cross Society. Welcome, ma'am.
தேங்க்யூ. அனைவருக்கும் இனிய மாலை வணக்கம். அழகானதொரு அமைப்பில் பல்வேறு தலைப்புகளில் நிகழ்ச்சிகளை நடத்தி கொண்டிருக்கக்கூடிய டாண்டம் அமைப்பிற்கும் மரிய பிரீத்தி மேடத்திற்கும் என்னுடைய வணக்கம். நிமிர்ந்த நன்னடை, நேர்கொண்ட பார்வை, நிலத்தில் யாருக்கும் அஞ்சாத அறநெறிகளும் திமிர்ந்த ஞானச் செருக்கும் இருப்பதால் செம்மை மாதர் திரும்புவதில்லையாம் என்று சொல்வார் பாரதி. நிமிர்ந்த நன்னடை, நேர்கொண்ட பார்வை, நிலத்தில் யாருக்கும் அஞ்சாத நெறி, இவையெல்லாம் நமக்கு புரியும். ஆனால் நான்காவதாக ஒரு வரி, திமிர்ந்த ஞானச் செருக்கு. அப்படி என்றால் என்ன திமிர்ந்த ஞானச் செருக்கு? அப்போ எந்த ஒரு சூழ்நிலையிலும் தான் எடுத்துக்கொண்ட லட்சியத்திலிருந்து, தன்னுடைய உயர்ந்த சிந்தனைகளில் இருந்து இவர்கள் கீழே இறங்க மாட்டார்கள். அந்த ஞான செருக்கு என்பது அன்றாட வாழ்க்கையில் அவர்கள் விரும்பி வெளிப்படுத்தும் பண்புகள், உயர்ந்த சிந்தனைகள், வாழ்க்கை ஒழுங்குமுறை, வாழ்க்கை பண்பின் அடிப்படையில் இவையெல்லாம் அமையக்கூடியது. இப்படிப்பட்ட பெண்கள் ஞானச் சிறுக்கை அடைவது இயல்பு என்று சொல்கிறார். அப்படிப்பட்ட பெண்ணை தேடி மதிப்புகள் தானாக வரும், மரியாதைகள் கூடும். உலகத்தில் இருக்கக்கூடிய எல்லா புகழும் அவர்களை சென்று சேரும். அப்படிப்பட்ட திறம் மிக்க ஒரு கல்லூரி முதல்வர் ராணிமேரி கல்லூரிக்கு அமைந்திருப்பதால் தான் கடந்த 3 ஆண்டுகளில் ராணிமேரி கல்லூரி அடைந்திருக்கக்கூடிய வளர்ச்சி அபரிவிதமானது என்றால் அது மிகையாக இருக்காது. அவர்களுக்கு என் பணிவான வணக்கம். என்னுடைய தலைப்பு சர்வதேச செஞ்சிலுவை சங்கம் மற்றும் செம்பிறை இயக்கம் அப்படின்னு சொல்லுவாங்க. சில இடங்கள்ல அந்த கிராஸ கிறிஸ்டியன் என்று சமயத்தோடு தொடர்பு கொள்ளக்கூடியதால அவங்க அதை கிராஸ் பயன்படுத்த மாட்டாங்க, செம்பிறை கிரசன்ட் பயன்படுத்துவாங்க. இன்டர்நேஷனல் ரெட் கிராஸ் அண்ட் ரெட் கிரசன்ட் மூவ்மெண்ட் அப்படின்னு தான் அதை சொல்லுவாங்க. இது ஒரு பன்னாட்டு மனிதாபிமான அமைப்பு என்று சொல்லலாம். இந்த இயக்கத்தில் நாடு, இனம், மதம், வகுப்பு, அரசியல் கருத்து என்பனவற்றின் அடிப்படையில் வேறுபாடு காட்டாமல் மனித உயிர்களையும் உடல் நலத்தையும் பாதுகாத்தல், மனிதர்களுக்கு மதிப்பளித்தலை உறுதிப்படுத்துதல், மனிதர்களின் துன்பங்களை தடுத்தல், அவற்றை நீக்குதல் ஆகிய கொள்கைகளை அடிப்படையாக கொண்டு ஊதியம் எதையும் எதிர்பார்க்காமல் உழைக்கக்கூடிய தன் ஆர்வலர்களை கொண்ட அமைப்பு என்று சொல்லலாம். நம்ம வழக்கத்துல சொல்லுவாங்க, தனிமரம் தோப்பாகாது. இலக்கியத்துல கூட, பழமொழியில கூட சொல்லுவாங்க, தனிமரம் காடாதல் இல் அப்படின்னு சொல்லுவாங்க. ஆனா ஒரு தனி மனிதர் தொடங்கிய ஒரு முயற்சி எப்படி ஒரு அடர்ந்த காடாக மாறியது அப்படிங்கறத நம்ம இன்னைக்கு பார்க்க போறோம். ஹென்றி டுனாண்ட் மே 8, 1828 பிறந்தார். ஜெனீவால பிறக்கிறார். இவர் ஒரு வணிக குடும்பத்தை சார்ந்தவர், வணிகத்தை தொழிலாக கொண்டிருக்கக்கூடியவர். வணிகத்தின் பொருட்டு வேலை காரணமாக 1859 இத்தாலி நாட்டில் இருக்கக்கூடிய சல்ஃபரினோ அப்படிங்கிற நகரத்துக்கு போறார். அப்போ அங்க போரானது நடைபெற்று கொண்டு இருக்கிறது. அந்த போர் நடைபெற்று கொண்டிருக்கக்கூடிய இடத்துக்கு போறாரு, பார்க்கறாரு. அந்த போரின் காரணமாக அங்கு இருக்கக்கூடிய அந்த போர்க்களமானது மிகவும் வருத்தத்தை அளிக்கக்கூடியதாக இருக்கிறது. 40,000-க்கும் மேற்பட்ட மக்கள் மிக மோசமான காயங்களால் பாதிக்கப்பட்டிருப்பதை அவர் பார்க்கிறாரு. அவர்களுக்கு மருத்துவ உதவி செய்ய அங்க யாரும் இல்ல, உணவளிக்க யாரும் இல்ல. இப்படி அவர்கள் அவதிப்படுவதை கண்டார். பல பேர் அதை பார்த்து அப்படியே கடந்து போனாங்க. ஆனா ஹென்றி டுனாண்ட் அப்படி கடந்து போக முடியல அவரால. அவர் அங்கு இருக்கக்கூடியவர்களே, தன்னோடு ஒத்த கருத்துடையவர்களை ஒன்றாக கூட்டி அங்க காயமுற்ற போர் வீரர்களுக்கெல்லாம் முதலுதவி செய்யறாரு. இந்த பணியை தொடர்ந்து 3 நாள் செஞ்சுக்கிட்டே இருக்கார். செஞ்சு முடிச்சிட்டு தன்னுடைய சொந்த ஊருக்கு ஜெனீவாக்கு திரும்பிய பிறகும் கூட அவருடைய மனமானது ஒரு அமைதியை அடைய முடியவில்லை. ஏன்னா அந்த காயமுற்றவர்களை பார்த்த அந்த காட்சி, நாங்க இலக்கியம் எடுக்கும் பொழுது சொல்வோம், கலிங்கத்து பரணியில போர்க்கள காட்சி, பேய்க்களம், பேய்க்கூத்து அப்படிலாம் படிப்போம். சோ படிக்கும் பொழுது பாத்தீங்கன்னா அந்த ஒரு கை துண்டுபட்ட யானையினுடைய தும்பிக்கை அறுபட்ட குதிரையினுடைய செவிகளுக்குள் அந்த அம்புகள் செலுத்தப்பட்டு அது துயரப்படக்கூடிய காட்சி, இப்படி நிறைய காட்சிகளை பாடமா எடுப்போம். ஆனா அது எடுக்கும் பொழுது பாத்தீங்கன்னா கண்ணு முன்னாடி அந்த காட்சியை படமாக பார்ப்போம். சோ அது போல காயமுற்றவருடைய துன்பம், அவல குரல், அவர்கள் அழுது இவர் கண் முன்னே பல பேருடைய உயிர் போன நிலைமை, இதையெல்லாம் இவருடைய மனதை விட்டு நீங்கவே இல்லை. அந்த பாதிப்பின் காரணமாக இவர் ஒரு நூல் எழுதுறார், சல்ஃபரினோ நினைவுகள் அப்படின்னு அந்த புத்தகத்துக்கு பேரு. அந்த நூல்ல அந்த போர்ல காயமுற்றவர்களுக்கு உதவுவதற்காக எந்த சார்புமே இல்லாத ஒரு பன்னாட்டு அமைப்பு இருந்தா நல்லா இருக்குமே அப்படிங்கிற தன்னுடைய கருத்தை வெளிப்படுத்துறார். புத்தகம் வெளியாகி ஓராண்டு ஆகுது. அதுக்கு பிற்பாடு கூட ஹென்ரியின் எண்ணம் ஒன்னும் நிறைவேற மாதிரி தெரியல. ஆனா ஓராண்டுக்கு பிற்பாடு ஹென்ரியினுடைய எண்ணமானது நிறைவேறக்கூடிய ஒரு வாய்ப்பு ஏற்பட்டது. ஜெனீவா மக்களினுடைய நல அமைப்பின் தலைவராக இருந்த குஸ்தவ் மாய்னீர் அப்படிங்கிறவரு ஹென்ரியினுடைய இந்த கருத்து அவருக்கு ரொம்ப பிடிச்சு போகுது. என்ன கருத்து? போரில் காயமுறுபவர்களுக்கு உதவுவதற்காக எந்த சார்பும் இல்லாத, ஏற்கனவே சொன்னேன் பாருங்க, சமயமோ மதமோ அரசியலோ வகுப்போ எந்த சார்பும் இல்லாத ஒரு அமைப்பு. இது அவருக்கு ரொம்ப பிடித்து போனது. போரில் காயமுறுபவர்களுக்கு உதவும் நோக்கில் பல்வேறு பரிந்துரைகளை அவர் முன்வைக்கின்றார். இந்த பரிந்துரைகள் 16 நாடுகளைச் சேர்ந்த உறுப்பினர்களால் ஏற்றுக்கொள்ளப்பட்டு அதன்படி உருவானதுதான் இந்த செஞ்சிலுவை சங்கம். 1864 ஆண்டு சுவிஸ் நாட்டு நாடாளுமன்ற அமைப்பை ஏற்பாட்டில் நடைபெற்ற அந்த ஜெனீவா மாநாட்டில் இந்த அமைப்பை உருவாக்க அதிகாரப்பூர்வமாக 12 நாடுகள் ஒப்புக்கொண்டன. அடுத்தடுத்து வந்த ஆண்டுகளில் அடுத்தடுத்த பல்வேறு நாடுகள் இந்த சங்கத்தில் தன்னை இணைத்துக் கொண்டன அப்படின்னு நம்ம சொல்லலாம். அப்போ 1864 யுத்தத்தில் காயமடையும் போர் வீரர்கள் பற்றி பேச ஒரு சர்வதேச பேச்சுவார்த்தையை ஏற்பாடு செய்திருந்தார். ஏன்னா இதுக்கு முன்னாடி வரைக்கும் போர்க்களங்களில் காயமுற்ற படை வீரர்களுக்காக முறைப்படி மருத்துவ பராமரிப்பு செய்வதற்காக எந்த நிறுவனமும் எந்த அமைப்பும் இல்லை என்பது உண்மை. இந்த முதலாவது உடன்படிக்கை கேட்ட பிரதான ஐரோப்பிய வல்லரசுகள் அந்த உடன்படிக்கையில சொல்லப்பட்ட எல்லா கருத்துக்களையும் ஏற்றுக்கொண்டன. 1906 இரண்டாவது உடன்படிக்கையில் முக்கிய அம்சங்கள் விரிவாக்கப்பட்டதுடன் கடலில் ஏற்படும் போர்களுக்கும் இவை பொருந்தும் என்று சொல்லப்பட்டது. முதல்ல அப்ப சொன்னது என்ன? 1864 ஒரு 4 தகவல். என்ன தகவலை ஏத்துக்கிறாங்க எல்லாரும்? காயம்பட்ட அல்லது நோய்வாய்ப்பட்ட போர் வீரர்களுக்கு சிகிச்சை அளிக்கும் நிறுவனங்கள் கைப்பற்றப்படவோ அழிக்கப்படவோ கூடாது. 2வது, எல்லா தரப்பை சேர்ந்த வீரர்களும் பக்க சார்பற்ற முறையில் பராமரிப்பும் சிகிச்சையும் அவர்களுக்கு வழங்கப்பட வேண்டும். யார வேணா இருந்துட்டு போட்டோம், போர்க்களத்துல காயம் பட்டிருக்காங்களா அவங்களுக்கு சிகிச்சை கொடுக்கணும். 3வது, காயப்பட்ட வீரர்களுக்கு உதவக்கூடிய குடிமக்களும் காக்கப்பட வேண்டும். 4வது, இந்த உடன்படிக்கையின் பணிபுரியும் ஆட்களையும் உபகரணங்களையும் இனம் காண ஒரு சிம்பல், ஒரு அடையாளம் நமக்கு வேண்டும். நம்ம புறப்பொருள் வெண்பா மாலை தொல்காப்பியத்துல எல்லாம் பாத்தீங்கன்னா ஒரு செயலுக்கும் வெற்றி, கரந்தை, வஞ்சி, காஞ்சின்னு ஒவ்வொரு பூவை சூடி செல்வார்கள். அந்த பூவை பார்த்ததுமே இவங்க யாருன்னு தெரிஞ்சுக்க முடியும், ஒரு அடையாளம். சோ அது போல கொண்டு வந்ததுதான் அந்த செஞ்சிலுவை சங்கம். அப்போ 1906 பாத்தீங்கன்னா இரண்டாவது உடன்படிக்கையின் முக்கிய அம்சங்கள் விரிவாக்கப்பட்டதோட கடல்ல ஏற்படக்கூடிய போர்களுக்கும் இது முதல்ல நிலத்துலதுக்கு மட்டும்தான் தீர்மானம் போட்டாங்க. அதுக்கப்புறம் கடலில் ஏற்படக்கூடிய போர்களுக்கும் இவை பொருந்தும் என்று அதை ஏற்றுக்கொண்டார்கள். அதுக்கப்புறம் பாத்தீங்கன்னா 1929 மூன்றாவது உடன்படிக்கையில என்ன சொல்றாங்கன்னா, யுத்த கைதிகளை கையாளும் முறை பற்றி நிபந்தனைகளும் அங்கு சேர்க்கப்பட்டது. யுத்த களத்தில் காயமடைந்த அல்லது நோயுற்ற இராணுவ வீரர்களுக்கு நிவாரணம் வழங்க வேண்டும். கடலில் வைத்து காயமடைந்த அல்லது நோயுற்ற அல்லது கப்பல் உடைந்த படையினருக்கு நிவாரணம் வழங்க வேண்டும். யுத்த கைதிகளை நடத்தக்கூடிய விதங்கள் என்னெல்லாம் இருக்கணும், யுத்த காலத்தில் சாதாரண குடிமக்களினுடைய உரிமைகளை பாதுகாப்பது, இவற்றை பற்றி எல்லாம் அந்த உடன்படிக்கையில கையெழுத்தானது. சரி, 1949 ஆகஸ்ட் 12 ஜெனீவாவில் நடைபெற்ற மாநாட்டுல அங்கீகரிக்கப்பட்டு ஏற்றுக்கொள்ளப்பட்ட இது எல்லாமே 4வது ஜெனீவா உடன்படிக்கை அப்படின்னு சொல்லுவாங்க. இந்த உடன்படிக்கையின்படி போரிடும் தரப்பொன்றினுடைய கட்டுப்பாட்டு பிரதேசத்தில் வாழக்கூடிய சாதாரண மக்களின் உரிமைகள் காக்கப்பட்டது. அதாவது எந்த ஒரு நோக்கத்திற்காகவும் தனி நபரையோ அல்லது குழுக்களையோ நாடு கடத்துதல் அல்லது பணைய கைதிகளாக்கு வைத்திருத்தல், ஆட்களை பாலியல் துன்புறுத்தலுக்கு ஆளாக்குதல், உடல் உள ரீதியாக வதைப்படுத்தக்கூடாது, விசாரணை இல்லாமல் கூட்டு தண்டனை வழங்கக்கூடாது, பழிவாங்க கூடாது, அவர்களுடைய சொத்துக்களை நியாயம் இல்லாத முறையில் பறித்து கொள்ளக்கூடாது, இன மத தேசிய அல்லது அரசியல் ரீதியில் பாரபட்சமாக நடத்துதல், இது எதுவுமே கூடாது, தடை செய்யப்பட்டது. இது எல்லாமே இந்த 4வது ஜெனீவா மாநாட்டுல. அதுக்கப்புறம் பாத்தீங்கன்னா 2ஆம் உலக போருக்கு பின்பு வந்த குடியேற்றவாதம், உள்நாட்டு கிளர்ச்சிகள், விடுதலை போராட்டங்கள் காரணமாக மீண்டும் இந்த உடன்படிக்கை எதுவுமே மதிக்கப்படாம மக்கள் அவரவர் முன்னாடி எப்படி இருந்தாங்களோ அப்படியே போகக்கூடிய ஒரு நிலையானது ஏற்பட்டது. இதன் விளைவாக 1977ல ஏற்கனவே போட்ட உடன்படிக்கையோடு சேர்த்து மேலும் 2 உடன்படிக்கைகள் சேர்க்கப்பட்டன. அந்த உடன்படிக்கை என்ன அப்படின்னு பாத்தீங்கன்னா, ஜெனீவா உடன்படிக்கை மற்றும் பிற ஒப்பந்தங்கள் தொடர்பான அனைத்து பிரச்சனைகளை விசாரிக்கும் மற்றும் நடைமுறைப்படுத்தும் அதிகாரம் ஐக்கிய நாடுகளின் சபைகள், அந்த பாதுகாப்பு அவங்க கிட்ட ஒப்படைக்கப்பட்டது. ஐநா அரிதாகவே ஜெனீவா உடன்படிக்கை தொடர்பான தனது அதிகாரத்தை செயல்படுத்துகிறது. அதனால் பெரும்பாலான பிரச்சனைகள் பிராந்திய ஒப்பந்தங்கள் மூலம் அல்லது அந்தந்த நாடுகளின் சட்டங்கள் மூலம் தீர்க்கப்படும் அப்படின்னு சொல்லுது. அதுக்கப்புறம் அந்த நடவடிக்கையினை பாதுகாக்கக்கூடிய அதிகாரங்களை பாதுகாத்தல் ஆயுத மோதலினுடைய பகுதியாக எடுத்துக் கொள்ளப்படுகிறது. போரின் போது அந்த நாட்டு மக்களினுடைய நலன்களை கருத்தில் கொண்டு இரு கட்சிகளுக்கிடையே நடுநிலையான ஒரு பேச்சுவார்த்தை நடத்துவது. போர் குற்றங்கள் வேண்டுமென்றே கொலை, சித்திரவதை, உயிரியல் சித்திரவதை, உடல்வதை, இப்படி எல்லாத்தையும் மறுத்து 1977ல உடன்படிக்கை கையெழுத்தானது. இதுல பாத்தீங்கன்னா அமெரிக்கா, பிரித்தானியா போன்ற நாடுகள் எல்லாம் இந்த உடன்படிக்கையில கையெழுத்து போட மறுத்துட்டாங்க. சரி, இப்படியாகி 4ஆம் ஜெனீவா உடன்படிக்கை இன்னொரு சிலவற்றின் குற்றம் அப்படின்னு சொல்லுது. பிணைய கைதியை பிடிச்சு வைக்கிறது, தேவையில்லாத ராணுவ நடவடிக்கைகளுக்காக ஒருவரை வேண்டுமென்றே அவருடைய உடைமைகளை எல்லாம் சேதப்படுத்துவது, சட்டவிரோதமாக நாடு கடத்துவது, இப்படி இடம்பெயர்த்தல், இப்படி எல்லாத்தையுமே 4ஆம் ஜெனீவா உடன்படிக்கை மறுப்பு தெரிவித்து இதையெல்லாம் இருக்கக்கூடாது. அப்போ எங்கோ ஒருத்தர் யாரோ ஒருவரால் தொடங்கப்பட்ட ஒரு செயலானது ஒரு கூட்ட அமைப்பாக மாறி செஞ்சிலுவை சங்கம், செம்பிறை சங்கம் என்று மாறி இன்று உலக அளவில் 100 மில்லியன் மக்களுக்கு மேல் தன்னார்வலர்களை கொண்ட உறுப்பினர்களை கொண்ட ஒரு சங்கமாக இயங்கிக் கொண்டு இருக்கின்றது அப்படின்னு நம்ம சொல்ல முடியும். சரி, 1965ல பாத்தீங்கன்னா வியன்னால பன்னாட்டு மாநாட்டுல 7 அடிப்படை உரிமைகளை அவங்க கொண்டு வராங்க. ஏதாவது ஒரு கொள்கைகள், அந்த கொள்கைகளை ஒரு சுருக்கமா கொண்டு வரணும், தெளிவா கொண்டு வரணும், அது மக்களிடம் சென்று சேர வேண்டும் என்ற நோக்கத்தில் அந்த 7 கொள்கைகளை கொண்டு வராங்க. ஒண்ணு பாத்தீங்கன்னா அடிப்படை கொள்கை, ரெட் கிராஸினுடைய அடிப்படை பேசிக் ஃபண்டமெண்டல் கொள்கைகள் என்ன அப்படின்னு பாத்தீங்கன்னா மனிதாபிமானம், 2 பாரபட்சமின்மை, 3வது நடுநிலைமை, 4வது சுதந்திரத்தன்மை, 5வது தொண்டு புரிதல், 6வது ஒற்றுமை, அதுக்கப்புறம் பரந்திய வியாபகம். எங்கேயா இருந்தாலும் எங்க பிரச்சனை அப்படின்னு சொன்னாலும் இவர்கள் சென்று அதற்கான செயல்களில் அதற்கான மாற்றத்தை உருவாக்குவதில் இந்த செஞ்சிலுவை சங்கத்தை சார்ந்த உறுப்பினர்கள் சென்று அந்த செயல்பாட்டில் ஈடுபட வேண்டும் அப்படின்னு சொல்றார். இப்படி தனி மனிதரா தொடங்கப்பட்ட இந்த அமைப்புக்கு பாத்தீங்கன்னா 1917, 1944, 1963 என 3 முறை அமைதிக்கான நோபல் பரிசினை இந்த செஞ்சிலுவை சங்கம் பெற்றுள்ளது அப்படின்னு சொல்லலாம். அதாவது 1917 எதுக்கு வாங்கினாங்கன்னு பாத்தீங்கன்னா திறமையான போர்க்கால நடவடிக்கைகளுக்காக இந்த நோபல் பரிசு வழங்கப்பட்டது. 1914 முதல் 18 வரை நடைபெற்ற நோபல் பரிசளிப்பு அது ஒன்றுதான். 1944 பாத்தீங்கன்னா 1ஆம் உலக போரின் முதன்மை காலகட்டம் அது இல்லையா. 1939 முதல் 1945 வரையான சேவைக்காக வழங்கப்பட்டது. 1936 இயக்கம் அந்த 100 கால கொண்டாட்டங்களின் போது அதனுடைய 3வது நோபல் பரிசினை அதற்கு வழங்கியது அப்படின்னு நம்ம சொல்ல முடியும். அப்போ ஜெனீவாவில் இருந்து கொண்டு ஜெனீவாவை தலைமையிடமாக கொண்டு உலகமெங்கும் இருக்கக்கூடிய ஆபத்தில் இருக்கக்கூடிய துன்பத்தில் இருக்கக்கூடிய அது போராக இருக்கலாம், இயற்கை பேரிடராக இருக்கலாம், அல்லது இருப்பிடம் இல்லாதவர்களாக இருக்கலாம், அல்லது நோய்வாய்ப்பட்டவர்களாக இருக்கலாம். இப்படி யாராக இருந்தாலும் அவர்களுக்கான உதவியை தொண்டை செய்வதை நோக்கமாக கொண்டுதான் இந்த அமைப்பானது செயல்பட்டு கொண்டிருக்கிறது. காக்கை குருவி எங்கள் ஜாதி, நீல் கடலும் மலையும் எங்கள் கூட்டம் அப்படின்னு சொல்வார் பாரதியார். அதைத்தான் இந்த செஞ்சிலுவை சங்கமானது தன்னுடைய நோக்கமாக கொண்டு செலுத்திக் கொண்டு வருகிறது. இந்த உலகத்துல பல்வேறு சங்கங்கள் இருந்தாலும் பால் நிலவை போல தங்க தாய் திருநாட்டினுடைய எல்லா நாடுகளிலுமே இந்த செஞ்சிலுவை சங்கமானது செயல்பட்டு கொண்டிருக்கிறது. அதே போலதான் இந்தியன் ரெட் கிராஸ் சொசைட்டின்னு சொல்லுவாங்க. இந்தியாவில் இயங்கக்கூடிய அந்த அமைப்பின் பெயர் இந்தியன் ரெட் கிராஸ் சொசைட்டி. இதனுடைய தலைமையகம் புதுடெல்லியில் இயங்கிக் கொண்டிருக்கிறது. அதாவது தமக்கென வாழ்வது வாழ்வல்ல, பிறருக்காக வாழ்வதே வாழ்க்கை. இதைத்தான் நம்முடைய இலக்கியங்கள் நமக்கு சொல்லிக் கொடுக்கக்கூடியதாக இருக்கிறது. அப்போ இந்த உலக படைப்புகளில் மிக உன்னதமான மிக சிறந்த அருமையான படைப்பு மனிதன் தான். அப்படிப்பட்ட அழகினை உடைய மனிதனானவன், பகுத்தறிவுடைய மனிதனானவன் தான் சார்ந்திருக்கக்கூடிய இந்த சமுதாயத்திற்காக என்ன செய்ய வேண்டும், நம்மால் என்ன செய்ய முடியும் என்பதை எண்ணி பார்த்தாலே போரும். நாம் பலவிதமான உதவிகளை இந்த மக்களுக்கு, இந்த சமுதாயத்திற்கு சென்று சேர்த்து விட முடியும் அப்படின்னு சொல்லலாம். அதாவது ஒரு நாளைக்கு ஒரு சிறு உதவி, ரொம்ப பெரிய அளவுல இல்ல, ஒரு நாளைக்கு ஒரு சிறு உதவி அப்படின்னு தொடங்கினீங்கன்னா 7 நாளைக்கு 7, வருஷம் முழுக்க எண்ணினீங்கன்னா 10. அப்போ நம்மால் முடியும் அளவிற்கு ஒரு நாளைக்கு ஒரு உதவி என்று நாம் செய்வதற்கு நாமும் பழக வேண்டும். நம்மோடு இருக்கக்கூடிய நம்முடைய மாணவ சமுதாயத்தையும் பழக்க வேண்டும் அப்படின்னு நான் சொல்றேன். உடுக்கை இழந்தவன் கை போலே அங்கே இடுக்கண் களைவதாம் நட்பு அப்படின்னு சொல்வார் வள்ளுவர். ஆபத்தில் இருக்கக்கூடியவர்களுக்கு உதவுவதுதான் மனித நேயம் என்று சொல்கிறார்கள். இந்த மனித நேயம் இன்று குறைந்து வருகிறது என்று சொன்னாலும் எங்கோ ஒரு இடத்தில் மனித நேயமானது இருக்கின்ற காரணத்தினால்தான் இந்த வானம் வானமாகவும் பூமி பூமியாகவும் நிலை பெற்று இயங்கிக் கொண்டு இருக்கிறது என்றால் அதுவும் மிகையாகாது என்று சொல்லலாம். உக்ரைனில் நடக்கக்கூடிய ரஷ்யா உக்ரைன் போர் இப்ப நடந்துகிட்டு இருக்க 2022 இருந்து அதுல பாத்தீங்கன்னா செஞ்சிலுவை சங்கத்தை சேர்ந்தவர்கள் அந்த போரில் காணாமல் போன ஒரு 50,000 பேரை பற்றிய தேடுதலில் இருந்து கொண்டிருக்கிறார்கள். அப்போ அந்த பணி எவ்வளவு கடினமானது என்பதை உணர்ந்து செயல்பட வேண்டும். போர் எங்கு நடந்தாலும், இயற்கை பேரிடர் எங்கு நடந்தாலும் முதலில் யாருடைய உதவிக்கரம் அங்கு செல்கிறது என்றால் செஞ்சிலுவை சங்கத்தினுடைய உதவிக்கரம் தான் அங்கு செல்கிறது. அது அவர்கள் செல்வதற்கு எந்த விதமான அனுமதியும் பெற தேவையில்லை. அந்த சிம்பல் இருந்தா போதும், ரெட் கிராஸ் அப்படிங்கிறது. இந்த ரெட் கிராஸ் அப்படிங்கிறது பாத்தீங்கன்னா அந்த சிம்பல்ல கூட ஒரு சில சிக்கல் இடையில வந்தது. 2000ங்கள்ல பாத்தீங்கன்னா இந்த இடத்த இந்த அமைப்பு இந்த பிளஸ் வந்து ரெட் பிளஸ் கிளியர் சிகப்பு குறியீடு அதை வந்து மருத்துவர்கள் பயன்படுத்துறாங்க, மெடிக்கல் ஷாப்ஸ்ல பயன்படுத்துறாங்களே. அப்போ ஒரு இயக்கம் பாத்தீங்கன்னா அங்க சென்னையில பொறுத்த வரைக்கும் பாத்தீங்கன்னா அப்ப சென்னை பல்கலைக்கழக ஒருங்கிணைப்பாளராக இருந்தேன் நான். சோ சென்னையில இருக்கக்கூடிய அப்பொழுது வந்து கிட்டத்தட்ட 97 கல்லூரிகள் சென்னை பல்கலைக்கழகத்தின் கீழ் இருந்தது. அத்தனை கல்லூரி மாணவர்களையும் ஒருங்கிணைத்து ஆங்காங்கே அவரவர் இருக்கக்கூடிய இடத்தில் இருக்கக்கூடிய மருத்துவரையும் மருந்தகத்தையும் சென்று நோக்கி சென்று ரெட் கிராஸ பத்தி சொல்லி இல்ல நீங்க ஸ்டெத்தஸ்கோப் பயன்படுத்துங்கன்னு மருத்துவரையும், நீங்க போடுற அந்த பிளஸ் கிரீன் கலர்ல இருக்கிறதையும் நாங்க ரொம்ப வலியுறுத்தி தினந்தோறும் இதை வந்து ஒரு பல நாட்கள் முன்னெடுத்தோம். ஆனா அதுக்கு சந்தோஷமா இருக்கு. இப்போ வந்து மருத்துவர்கள் அந்த ஸ்டெத்தஸ்கோப்பினுடைய குறியீட்டை பயன்படுத்துறாங்க, மெடிக்கல் ஷாப்ல பாத்தீங்கன்னா பிளஸ் குறியீடு. அப்போ சமுதாயத்தில் ஒரு செய்தியை கொண்டு சேர்க்க வேண்டும் என்றால், அவர்கள் அதை பின்பற்ற வேண்டும் என்றால் அதனுடைய வரலாறு தெரிய வேண்டும். தனிமரம், நான் முதலியே தொடங்கினேன் பாருங்க, தனிமரம் தோப்பாகாது என்று சொல்வார்கள். இல்லை, யார் முன்னெடுப்பது, ஐயோ நான் மட்டும்தானே இருக்கேன், நான் என்ன செய்யணும் யாருமே நினைக்க வேண்டாம். ஒருவர் முன்னெடுக்கும் பொழுது அந்த நல்ல எண்ணமும் அந்த நல்ல செயலும் பலரை அங்கு ஒருங்கிணைக்கும் என்பதில் யாதொரு ஐயமும் நமக்கு தேவையில்லை. அப்போ விண்மீன்கள் பலவாக இருந்தாலும் வானம் ஒன்றுதான். அதே போல உயிர்கள் பலவாக இருந்தாலும் உணர்வு ஒன்றுதான். மதங்கள் பலவாக இருந்தாலும் அவை சொல்லக்கூடிய உண்மை ஒன்றுதான், அன்புதான் உயிர். உயிர்தான் அன்பு, அன்பே சிவம். சிவம் என்பது நமக்குள் இருக்கக்கூடிய ஒரு உணர்வு, உண்மை என்று சொல்லலாம். அப்போ இனங்கள் பலவானாலும் படைப்பு ஒன்றுதான் என்று சொல்லலாம். அப்போ ஆத்திச்சூடியை கூட நம்ம மாற்றணும் போல இருக்கு. அன்பாய் பழகு, ஆண் பெண் சமம், இனவெறி தவிர், ஈகை காட்டு, உண்மை பேசு, ஊருக்கு உதவு, எளிமையாய் இரு, ஏற்றத்தாழ்வை நீக்கு, ஐயத்தை அகற்று, ஒற்றுமையை வளர்த்துக்கொள், ஓயாமல் உழை, மத வேறுபாடு இன வேறுபாடு களை, மொழி வேறுபாடு மொழி பாகுபாடு அனைத்தையும் களைந்தது, கற்க மதங்களை கற்றுக்கொள், அவை என்ன சொல்கின்றன, என்ன அறங்களை போதிக்கின்றன என்று கொட்கள், களைக வேறுபாட்டை, உண்மையின் வழியில் நின்றால் இந்த சமுதாயமானது அன்பெனும் பிடியுள் அகப்படும் மலையே என்று சொல்வார்கள். அன்பு என்ற ஒரு பிடிக்குள் ஒரு மலையே அகப்படும் பொழுது மனிதன் அகப்படாமலா சென்றுவிடும், அல்லது மனிதன் அகப்படாமலா சென்று விடுவான். இப்படி போர்க்களத்தில் அவலங்களை சந்தித்து இருக்கக்கூடிய மக்களுக்கு உதவக்கூடிய அமைப்புகளை பற்றியும், அவருடைய கல்வி வழிபாடுகளை பற்றியும், நெறிமுறைகளை பற்றியும், அவர்கள் மீண்டும் அவருடைய நாடுகளுக்கு சென்று எப்படி அவருடைய வாழ்க்கை தொடர்வது என்பதை பற்றியும் தான் எனக்கு முன் பேசியவர் அழகாக எடுத்துரைத்தார். போரே இல்லாமல் இருந்தால் நாடானது அமைதியாக இருக்கும். கம்பராமாயணத்தில் ராமனுக்கு சொல்வார்கள், ராமனுக்கு முடிசூட்டி விடா என்று சொல்லும் பொழுது தசரதானவன் தன்னுடைய குலகுருவை அழைத்து சொல்வார், ராமனுக்கு நல்ல அறங்களை போதியுங்கள் என்று சொல்வார். என்னடா அது, ராமனே அறம், அறம் அப்படின்னா ராமன்னு சொல்வாங்களே, ராமனுக்கு இன்னும் என்ன நான் நல்லதை சொல்லணும்னு கேட்கும் பொழுது, இல்ல இவ்வளவு நாள் அவள் இளவரசன், ஆனால் நாளை முதல் அவன் பட்டத்து அரசர், எனவே அவருக்கு தேவையானதை சொல்லுங்கள் என்று சொல்லும் பொழுது அவர் ஒரு சொல்வார், ராமா, யாரோடும் போர் செய்யாத, அதனால உனக்கு பகை ஏற்படாது, பழி ஏற்படாது, போர் ஒடுங்கும் ஆனால் உன்னுடைய புகழ் ஒடுங்காதுன்னு சொல்வார். போர் இல்லாமல் இருக்கும் ஆனால் உன்னுடைய புகழானது ஒடுங்காது என்று சொல்வார்கள். நம்முடைய இலக்கியங்கள் எல்லாம் நம்முடைய தமிழர்கள் போருக்கு அறம் வைத்து வளர்த்தவர்கள். வேற எங்க அறம் இருக்கான்னு எனக்கு தெரியல, போருக்கான அறம் வேற எந்த மொழியில் சொல்லியிருக்காங்கன்னு தெரியல. ஆனால் தமிழர்கள் போருக்கு அறத்தை சொல்லி இருக்கின்றார்கள். ரெட் கிராஸ் என்பது பாத்தீங்கன்னா யூத் ரெட் கிராஸ் என்று இளைஞர்கள் கல்லூரி மாணவர்கள் அளவில் யூத் ரெட் கிராஸ் என்றும், பள்ளி மாணவர்கள் அளவில் ஜூனியர் ரெட் கிராஸ் என்றும், இளம் வயது முதல் அவர்களுக்கான மனிதாபிமானம், பாரபட்சமின்மை, நடுவு நிலைமை, சுதந்திர தன்மை, தொண்டு புரிதல், ஒற்றுமை, பரந்த வியாபகம் இவற்றை போதித்து விட்டோமேயானால் அவர்கள் தாங்கள் கற்ற கல்வியை இந்த சமுதாயத்தில் கொண்டு எப்படி அதை அவர்கள் அந்த சமுதாயத்தில் அவர்கள் எப்படி இந்த அறங்களை, எப்படி தான் கற்ற அறங்களை, தான் கற்ற பாடத்தை, தான் கற்ற கல்வி ஞானத்தை இந்த சமுதாயத்திற்கு எப்படி பயன்படுத்த முடியும் என்ற வகையில், அதாவது தியரியா படிக்கிறாங்க, பிராக்டிக்கலா அதை எப்படி கொண்டு சேர்க்க முடியும். ரொம்ப அழகா மரிய பிரீத்தி ஸ்ரீனிவாசன் போட்டிருக்காங்க, இதுக்கெல்லாம் ஆங்கில வடிவம் போட்டிருக்காங்க, ரொம்ப சந்தோஷம். சோ அந்த வகையில நாம் தனி நபராக இதனை தொடங்கிய அந்த ஹென்றி டுனாண்ட் அவர்தான், அவருக்கு கூட 1901 அமைதிக்கான முதல் நோபல் பரிசை அவர் பெற்றவராக இருக்கிறார். அவர்தான் இந்தியன் ரெட் கிராஸ் சொசைட்டி, இன்டர்நேஷனல் ரெட் கிராஸ் சொசைட்டின்னு சொல்றோம் பாருங்க, அதனுடைய தந்தையை என்று அழைக்கப்படக்கூடிய பெருமை உடையவராக இருக்கிறார். வேர்ல்டு ரெட் கிராஸ் டே பாத்தீங்கன்னா மே 8 அவருடைய பிறந்த தினத்தன்று கொண்டாடப்படுகின்றது. நம்மளுடைய மாணவ செல்வங்களுக்கிடையே இந்த கருத்துக்களை, இந்த இயக்கத்தினுடைய தன்மையை நாம் கொண்டு சேர்த்தோமையானால் நிச்சயம் இந்த சமுதாயத்தில் ஒரு மாற்றத்தை, ஒரு மறுமலர்ச்சியை உருவாக்க முடியும். ஆபத்தில் உதவுபவனே நண்பன் என்று சொல்வார்கள். நாம் எல்லாம் நட்புணர்வோடு, உடுக்கை இழந்தவன் கை போல அங்கே இடுக்கண் களைவதாம் நட்பு என்று கூறியதை போலே நட்போடு பிணைந்து, அன்பால் பிணைந்து இந்த மலை என்று சொல்லக்கூடிய இந்த உலகத்தை நம்முடைய கைப்பிடிக்குள் கொண்டு வந்து விட முடியும் என்பதை உணர வேண்டும். போர் என்பது இல்லாமல் இருந்தால் நலமாக இருக்கும், போர் என்பது இல்லாமல் இருந்தால் நலமாக இருக்கும் என்பதை ஒவ்வொரு இடங்களிலும் நாம் செல்லக்கூடிய இடங்கள் தோறும் அமைதியை போதித்துக் கொண்டே வந்தோமேயானால் நிச்சயம் ஒரு நாள் இந்த அமைதி புறாவானது இந்த உலகத்தில் பறக்கும் என்று சொல்லி வாய்ப்புக்கு நன்றி பாராட்டி அமர்கிறேன். நன்றி, வணக்கம்.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for your eloquent and insightful address. And your articulation in Tamil was not only enriching, but it also added a unique depth to our understanding of International Red Cross Society. And moving on to a next quick Q&A session. If anyone have any questions to ask to our keynote speakers or want to share some of your thoughts on today's topic, please feel free to speak.
I have a question for all three speakers. So the International Red Cross Society, UNHCR, and UNESCO. Of course, UNESCO focusing on education. I remember when I was being trained by Dr. Anuradha in an orientation course about the Red Cross Society. She detailed what a Red Cross society gets involved in and what we don't get involved in. And I think she focused on medical help. Am I right, Anu ma'am?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Medical help and disaster management.
Disaster management.
Yes, these were my two takeaways from her. So like that, I just would like to see where these three organizations converge and diverge. You know, the divergence and convergence, the intersections. If the three speakers could take us through that.
So may I go first, Dr. Venkat?
Yes, please.
So, in terms of the organizational engagement, there is a clear arrangement globally available. So, when it comes to there is a cluster level response system. So, this cluster level response system is managed by interagency coordination group. So that is a global organization, which is a combination of all the organizations involved in humanitarian aid. So for that matter, the shelter and the protection is an area in disasters or in global conflict situation which UNHCR takes the lead. And on education, it is basically, I think, co-led by UNICEF and UNESCO on child education. And in terms of the humanitarian aid, that is to rescue operations, which is led by the ICRC. So this is what it is. And in terms of moving on, there is a lot of complementarity that each of us, each of the agencies have to have, because at the end of the day, it is not about what which agency is doing. It is about what we are able to do to that particular situation to help the people. So that really drives the whole operations and arrangements that we have.
Yeah, I think Dr. Valan has clearly sort of outlined what the role is. As he said, this interagency coordination group is there, and within education also, UNESCO like chairs kind of education network group. We have some players like Education Cannot Wait, International Network for Emergency Education, INE, etc. They have a kind of like a subgroup working on the technical aspects and also providing like in-ground, in the fields kind of support also. Um, on the culture front, it has been a very kind of a separate thing, in a sense, not because it doesn't come necessarily in the humanitarian thing, but it is kind of interconnected. So it is something that is supported by quite a number of international groups who are concerned about conservation, protection of heritage and cultural structures. So that is also there, but primarily in terms of at the time of conflict and sort of conflict scenarios, as part of the humanitarian support, UNESCO is, as I outlined, it's the education that is given priority, and it works with its own group of sort of interagency kind of cooperation that works who are kind of concerned with education, like the lead agencies, as he said, UNESCO, UNICEF, etc. And education cannot wait. And now the global program for education, GPE, is also a major funding body for educational interventions in humanitarian situations.
Yes, question or observation. All three of you mentioned that individuals can make, yes, individuals, maybe Red Cross Society, students are all involved in some way or the other. But during times of crisis, disaster, how can, do you allow student bodies, others to come and help with education in war-torn areas, conflict-ridden areas, or
Yes,
refugees? Do we allow? I think question is to all three.
yes,
Of
ma'am.
you,
Yes, ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸ் வந்து நாங்க ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸுடைய ஹெல்ப்போட தான் அந்த கன்சர்ன் ஹெட் குவார்ட்டர்ஸ்ல வி ஆர் ஒர்க்கிங் மேம். ஒவ்வொரு புயலா இருக்கட்டும், அல்லது மழையாக இருக்கட்டும், சுனாமியாக இருக்கட்டும், இல்ல வேறு ஏதாவது பிரச்சனைகளாக இருக்கட்டும், ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸ் வாலண்டியர்ஸோட ஹெல்ப்போட தான் நாங்க அந்த டிஸ்ட்ரிபியூஷன்ஸ்ல இருந்து அந்த ஐடென்டிஃபை பண்றதுல இருந்து எல்லாமே ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸ் இன்வால்வ் பண்றோம் மேம், ரெட் கிராஸை பொறுத்த வரைக்கும்.
Madam, your work, I think, ends with that particular disaster. But in what you call education and all that in war-torn areas, I think it goes on for a long time. So Dr. Venkat, I think, can tell, and Dr. Valan can also tell us whether student bodies, other institutions are allowed to help with the teaching and other. You said that archaeological people look after the cultural, cultural sites.
I can see one thing I need to clarify. UNESCO, unlike UNHCR or UNICEF, is not a field organization. It's basically is an organization that works primarily with governments, mainly at the policy level, developing standards, frameworks, and also technical support like capacity building to ministries, etc. So it works with organizations like UNHCR and UNICEF in times of crisis. For example, my own personal experience, I can give you an example of Lebanon, where it hosted several million Syrian refugees. So basically, the camps are all completely run and maintained by UNHCR. UNHCR has a massive operation there. And UNICEF is also providing a lot of like temporary shelters which becomes classrooms and things like that. Whereas UNESCO's role is looking into the aspects of like curriculum development, providing resources, looking at teacher resources, trying to set up alternate sources for teachers. And that is where that voluntary part comes. So there in Lebanon, we didn't have per se teacher student volunteers, but there were a lot of volunteers who are actually educated, who came forward to come and teach in the camps, which was allowed, provided they do all the screening part and etc. And for them, the UN agencies working in education provided the basic, the materials, the training. So that kind of work is what UNESCO basically does.
And if I can continue responding to that question on so again, with regard to the engagement of students as volunteers, it is quite difficult from the perspective of the work that we do. And because in conflict situations, that is safety is another major challenge, because as a field-based frontline organization, UNHCR need to deal with government security agencies and also the other organizations which may create certain challenges. So in that way, the engagement of students is pretty much not possible. But however, what we engage is primarily in respect to some of the work that we have with the protracted situations where we have NGOs who are delivering the services for them. And of course, there is a possibility that the students can also volunteer with that NGOs. So that is the only possibility that we have for the engagement of students as volunteers in the work that we do.
Okay, thank you. It's made it, I mean, so much more illuminating. I was just wondering how.
And I think Anuradha ma'am also touched upon volunteering, and Valan sir also spoke about it at the everything at the personal level when he quoted Dr. Kalam. So actually, you could each of you, just reiterate something about, because we have a student audience, something that each of us can do at a personal level in our day-to-day lives to be in small ways agents of humanitarian intervention.
May I go?
Ma'am, shall
Okay. So for me, is actually having worked in this conflict and post-conflict countries and things like that. I always feel that as a student, there are a few things I think it's very important. I mean, first thing is there's a lot of stereotyping and also incorrect information that has been perpetuated by the media regarding refugees and internal migrants, etc. So I think as a student, we need to develop this very broad kind of overview and view about people who have been displaced, especially those who have been forcefully sort of displaced, about refugees and migrants. So I think we need to have a better understanding of that. The second thing is uh, there is also issues of trying to understand the contextual issues also, because globally, uh, like we talk about now, we are talking about Ukraine, we are talking about Syria and everything. My experience is whenever I come across here people, generally they have very poor understanding of what went wrong and what were the issues in these countries, and historically how they've been, what they've been contributing, and what are the kind of reasons for which this has happened. Because that understanding will help us to understand situation right now things are happening. So I think it's about, because we are students, we need to actually sort of educate ourselves about these countries, about the people, their culture, the social aspects, the historical aspects, and what led to that, so that we will start having a better understanding and viewing about these issues. Because there's been a lot of incorrect information. It's out there. In fact, as a kind of another point is, we are talking today about artificial intelligence and education. I've been talking recently in another forum. See, basically, if you look into the sociological aspects of how AI is being produced, I mean the training part of this AI, much of them are based in the Silicon Valley. So it's about the privileged, their view of world, that is what going into the AI. For example, many are using Chat GPT, but the information that it gives about some of these, let's say, conflicted countries, is already kind of has its own bias, internal bias and stereotyping. So we have to be very careful in how we use such, even these AIs and technology, and what sort of information is given. So I think these are the things as students we need to understand. That of course, hands-on experience is very important. So by connecting with, there are a lot of NGOs working. I mean, leave alone refugees. I mean, India, we don't get to work quite often, but there are a lot of internal migrants that we need to understand. I mean, we can actually kind of come to know about them and work. I mean, sort of, if there is an opportunity arises, we can try to sort of go and help them. For example, we saw during COVID, a lot of internal migrants were affected, and especially in Tamil Nadu, a lot were things. So we need to have some kind of exposure to that. So these are the things I think it's very important before we go into much more serious aspects of actually committing ourselves and our life and career to the cause of refugees or other things.
Politics also affects, I mean, whatever political inclination our nation has also affects our, I mean, I do not know whether we can safely comment on Syria or Iran or Iraq or anything like that in our country. And so taking sides or help, I mean, talking that, I mean, of course, Dr. Valavan just said we have to be careful from where those information that largely comes. But we do not know, especially with that Rohingya refugees and all that, we didn't even know what stand India had taken, whether it's right for us to help or not to help. At least during the Bangladesh refugee time, we had stamps and we knew I mean, I was very small then, and I knew that we have to be of help to them in some way or the other. Okay, but now I do not know how the students of today are very, I mean, they are, for one, they don't bother too much to know about international affairs. Most students today, not like the times we were living in. Perhaps we were, though media was scarce then, we used to read the newspapers or something to find out something about what on. I do not know now, when information is large, whether we are all getting the right kind of information. So
No, actually, there are two things, madam. Before I pass it on to Valan sir, is like one is the political side you mentioned there. That is something what the country does. But second thing is the data, the real data. For example, UNHCR has a fantastic database, and they are the ones who actually count the refugees who are coming and everything. So some of these international agencies, you have the data. So the question is us accessing this information and then finding out for ourselves as to what is the true picture is. So evidence is very important, and that's a training that I think not only in this scenario, any academic programs, I think evidence based analysis, evidence based kind of looking at situation is very important training for any student. Over to you, sir.
Yes, thank you. Just wanted to add my personal experience of what has led me to be a part of UNHCR. When I was a college student, there was an organization called Refugee Students Association, which is all the students who were studying in various colleges who are all refugees. Basically, the Refugee Students Organization organizes only two events every year. One is during the time when they come and enroll. One is during the time they are about to leave. So that is like the beginning of academic year and end of academic year, where there is a bit of a discussion happens to understand what a newcomer as a refugee requires. So probably my suggestion would be to also see if there are students who are in the colleges or in the schools. Maybe we can reach out to them, and probably as a student probably they can volunteer to be part of those kind of a thing, because that Refugee Student Association is not anymore active in Chennai, but something that we maybe Queen Mary's College can anchor it. So that would also provide an opportunity. And the second thing is, again, with of course political narratives and the political restrictions impact the way the students can also volunteer. For an example, if the government takes a stand that they are not supportive of one particular group of refugees, it will be difficult for us as academicians or as a volunteer, as a student, also to get engaged. But one thing that we can always see is there are elements that helps us to connect with them. For an example, arts, literature, and there's other skills like probably the singing or probably dancing. And if there are somebody as a student who is very good in that, they can also try to see whether they can organize such a kind of workshop, because even if they are politically not preferred group of people, still it is a humanitarian gesture. Like what I have as an individual, I am giving it to somebody. So that can be something. And the third the recommendation that I would also offer or probably suggest is the basically there are, as in line with what Dr. Venkat already said, there are information available. So basically, if there is an article or there is a kind of a reel, because nowadays I'm not sure like how much of students community are interested in reading article, but definitely reels and so many other things are about refugees and the specific value added things that they offer to the society is available. So probably they can help in promoting that through whatever that they do.
Thank you, sir. That was um, a lot of food for thought and motivating us to be more humanitarian. So, Said, can we close the session today? I don't think there are any more questions.
Sure, ma'am. I would like to thank all our speakers and participants for the engaging and thought-provoking Q&A session. And before we conclude, it's my humble duty and immense pleasure to deliver the vote of thanks. On behalf of the PG and Research Department of English, Queen Maris College, and In Tandem Research Club, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to our Honorable Principal, Dr. B. Uma Maheshwari, ma'am, for gracing this session with her presence and inspiring words. And a special thanks to Dr. Maria Priti Srinivasan, ma'am, ever supportive head of the department, for her constant encouragement and guidance. We deeply honored and thankful to our distinguished keynote speakers, Dr. Venkatraman sir, Mr. Satchithananda Valan Michael sir, and Dr. Anuradha ma'am, for taking the time to enlighten us with your powerful talks and perspectives. Your words have sparked thoughts that will stay with us long after the session ends. We also thank our esteemed board members of Intandem Research Club, Dr. Samuel Rufus sir, Dr. R. Srilata ma'am, and Mr. Joshua Nyana Selvan sir, for your continued guidance, warmth, and encouraging presence. To all the faculty members, research scholars, students, and participants, thank you everyone for your time, energy, and wholehearted engagement throughout the symposium series. Last but not least, heartfelt thanks to the technical and organizing team working behind the scenes to ensure everything runs smoothly. Thank you all once again for making this valedictory session meaningful and memorable. And with that, we come to the close of this memorable evening. We thank each and every one of you for being part of this valedictory session and for supporting the initiatives of In Tandem Research Club. And may we continue to engage in dialogues that build peace, deepen understanding, and nurture global harmony. Like the motto of our research club, together we grow. And stay safe and inspired. Thank you all once again. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank